Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, I got to chat with Vo Williams. You know his songs from shows such as Atlanta, Ballers, and Empire, as well as video games and much more. We chat about finding his career path in music, what goes into his songwriting process, and how he feels about missed opportunities. Hope you enjoy.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to do the interview today, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, thanks for having me. How are you?
Doing great.
Go.
You just got back from traveling, is that right?
Yeah, I just got back from London. Had a recording session out there with a new label, actually.
Very cool. I've only been to London twice, but that's a great city. It's really fun.
Yeah, I love it.
How was the studio? What kind of experience was that?
Oh, it was crazy. I mean, just kind of getting my bearings in the city and being in that environment was wild. Actually, the studio is called SARM Studio, SARM, and it's in Notting Hill, which is a beautiful neighborhood. And the layout of the studio is just so modern and nice, man. It's got this like open garden just outside the recording booth. So you look out of the window and you can see the sky and you can just like really feel like you're in London while you're recording, man. It just offers a different vibe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think of how often I've seen, mics in padded closets and stuff like that to get, some control over the sound and I mean, anybody who's done podcasting has definitely tried to clear out or leave the clothes in their walk-in closet and, cram everything in there.
No, I know. Listen, we spent many years in the closet, man, and also in the bathroom, in the shower, just trying to figure out, the hanging up like rugs, mattresses, man, everything. Like at one point, my bed was a recording booth and also my and what I slept on. So I get it.
Yeah, I remember having friends in a punk band that had all this egg crate, and we were all so jealous of like, where did you guys get this stuff? Because nobody else had like actual, looked legit sound pad.
Right. That's dope.
You've had songs across TV shows, video games, all sorts of stuff. Can you talk a bit about your songwriting process? Are most of these stuff you've written that then gets placed on something, or do you write to the project?
It's actually a hybrid of both. Sometimes I'll get what's called a brief, and in that brief, they'll basically outline what it is they're looking for to drive either a scene in a film, television, or to fit in a space inside a video game. Typically video games, because a lot of the games that I'm in, they have radios incorporated in the game. So you can kind of customize your experience while you're playing. And I'm mostly on a lot of radio stations within games like Watch Dogs 2, The Crew 2. So yeah, that's pretty cool like that. And so, in terms of syncing, they'll usually go through my music or they'll find my music and they'll request it for a scene, or sometimes they'll just hit me up. They'll be like, you know what, this guy Vo is the one who's going to deliver this, and this is what we need, because they know I'm going to nail it every single time. You know what I'm saying? So they'll send me what they're looking for. Sometimes they don't even have a brief. They'll just send me the scene. I'll look at the scene and I'll essentially compose to it. So yeah, it's a bit of both.
When you sit down to compose to it, what are the tools that you kind of pull around you in terms of instruments and software and whatnot?
Oh my goodness, everything, man. It really depends on what the universe is calling for, what the scene is calling for, what the story and the characters are calling for. We pull in live instruments. I pulled in, like semi large orchestras before that, like, you know what I'm saying, like strings and like drum sections and like horns, like, all the way down to just an acoustic guitar, or sometimes we might just do everything digital. So, we're producing inside the machine a lot. And then there's been times where, again, like when I'm just creating music, I might be collaborating with an artist who has already pulled most of that production together, and then I come in and I write music to that, and we collaborate on a finished composition that way. So really everything, man. But I would say that we pretty much use almost every not every instrument in the world, but any instrument you can imagine that would go into a score. We've used it both in a digital rack and also live instruments.
In terms of things you never thought you'd get to play with, when you were first thinking up music as a kid, what's been your favorite new toy that you've gotten to, like, oh man, we can use the, I had this sound in my head, and for the first time in my life, I can call someone and say, get me one of those. Have you had a favorite moment like that?
Really it's been more about the people that I've been able to work with. The instruments, I mean, sometimes we use human sounds, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And we'll distort human sounds if we need a guitar, but we can't find a guitar that's giving us that right tone, that right vibe. Sometimes we just do it with the voice and then run that and process that into a guitar. So it's just a lot of different crazy stuff. But yeah, I would say more so than instruments, just people, just being able to call people and be like, yo, can you do this? Or can you jump down on that? And, and just having so much work out there and people being able to see that we legit about what we do, for them to just be down to jump down. And man, I've been able to work with some cats, man, like, that you wouldn't even imagine, man. And not even just like people who have very public brands, people who are like charting artists, but, like legends behind the scenes, and some cats who are just super anonymous, but are so deep, in the business. It's crazy. Like my buddy, Robin Loxley, for example, Robin Loxley is one of those cats who's just legendary in film, television, and anybody who is working in film, television, they know it. They know that name. And, that's actually who I was just out in London with. And to be able to like fly to London and record with a person like that in SARM Studios, it's like, it's crazy. You know what I mean? So it's been more so the relationships than just like very odd instruments. I do love the fact that now we're at the place where we have the trust and we have we're established enough to experiment more. Because when you first start out, you want to be authentic and do what you feel. And we do that. But I think there's more of a trust now to where we pull in something that's a little bit unorthodox. People just rock with it, because they know we know what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? For example, there's this instrument called a berimbau, which is used heavily in capoeira. Capoeira is a Brazilian martial art. And I've used that in a couple compositions and just buried it in there. And I know a lot of people just wouldn't just jump to that if they were their first job or something like that. But, now we're at the place where we can really experiment and do some crazy stuff. So, yeah, absolutely.
When you were first getting into music, did you see a soundtrack path, or was kind of this niche of the industry something you'd even thought about or imagined?
Not at all. Not at all. I didn't even know it existed. I think still a lot of artists don't realize that this lane exists or how lucrative this lane is. And I didn't even realize. I fell into it by accident, man. Like when I started making music, I'm just creating. When I wrote my very first rhyme or like wrote my very first song on guitar or whatever, like I was just creating. And then, you just try to get better and better and better. And then, just like anybody else, my goal was, that very traditional goal of trying to be an artist who lands on the radio and then having like a number one hit song and like, get my joints to DJs and breaking songs. Like that was the path that I was on. And then to be found by media in this way and to put music out in this way was just like, it hit me by total surprise. And once I started doing it, man, I just fell in love with it. And it almost feels like I was meant to do this. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. I've heard you describe your music as epic hip hop, and I think it does have a grand cinematic kind of scope to it. And so I wonder if working in this lane, has that changed how you feel like you can think about your songs? Like, does that lane feel wider as far as, being grand in scale, being epic in scale, as opposed to, if you were trying to narrowly hit what's on the charts right now, you might have a a producer going,
A
no, man,
different
you need
sound.
trap drums right now. Everything's got to sound like this, or you need,
Right,
you know,
right,
uh,
right.
do you feel like that's
Yeah.
focused or changed your songwriting?
You know what? Man, it's I feel like just like anything in life, in life's journey, you meet a person who changes your life, and sometimes you might adopt some of their philosophies, or like you might incorporate that into the way you move. You may travel somewhere and fall in love with that place, and then some of that culture rubs off on you and becomes a part of the way you move. It's the same thing I think that happened with me in music. Yeah, I got more practice in trying to I've always wanted to have a massive, colossal sound. But I think just in working in film television, where it calls for more size to drive picture, you just get more practice. And, it really is a part of my authentic voice. It just is a part of who I am. It's something that it's something that's enriched my experience and now changes the way I hear music. So I guess to answer your question, it's not so much that I'm making this music out of circumstance. It really is just how I express myself, and I think it just comes from this is the land I live in, and this is how we speak. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is the ingredients of the land that I'm from, and where I thrive and where my people live at. This is where we set up our shop, and now our lives and our voice and our colors and the way we rock and the way we move and the way we sound. The circumstances of needing to survive in that space, in that environment, has now become our custom, and this is who we are. So I would say yes. Initially, of course, trying to really master a sound that would drive picture is a part of adjusting to the new space. But then after a while of doing it, it just becomes my voice. This is what I do. This is who I am. If I were to try to be on radio, yeah, I think I would have to adapt to that environment, to that space, the sound, the culture, the color of that space, and then hopefully do a little something different. But it would always have a culture that can kind of ride with with everything else in that space. So just like you said, maybe I would use more trap drums, or like the triples flow, like that Migos flow or whatever that everybody uses. Even R&B artists use that flow, but they just add melody to it. But that's the rhythm of that space. I'm the type of person to where I'm just going to do what I want to do anyway. So I would just try to cram my feelings on the radio. I got this song called Rampage. I think that song is a radio hit, but that's just the way that I hear things. You know what I'm saying? And Rampage is straight up that's punk rock. That's heavy metal, and I'm bringing hip hop to it. But I think that joint would go crazy on radio. I think that would go, but it just is what it is. It just happens to work really, really well for cinema, and I'm not bad for that. You know what I mean? So
you talked about falling in love with experiences or being changed by your path. Has there been any lesson you've picked up along the way that you wish you could go back and grab young Vo and go, hey man, listen, start doing this?
Bro, anybody who has had some success wishes they could do it earlier. You know what I'm saying? I wish I could go back and just start earlier, because but I won't. Okay, so for example, I wish I could show myself this industry earlier, but I also realized that the more time I spent grinding and trying to figure out how to be a better artist, and how to and that in alignment, the time that's passing while I'm practicing in alignment with the ground changing underneath me. Because as you're trying to get better, as you're striving to succeed in the music industry, the ground is still shifting underneath you. So you're going through the Wu-Tang era, and then the ground shifts, and now you're under the Rockefeller era, and then the ground shifts, and now you're in the Migos era. So So, not that I'm a wave rider or that I'm following trends, but when you're living in these different worlds and experiencing all these different shifts in art and these new voices in art, it's what it's doing is it's giving you more experience. Yeah, you're spending more time struggling and you're spending more time on the ground floor trying to be on the come up. But the value of that time is priceless because you're seeing so many different ways to use the medium.
Yeah.
So now when I'm coming into this space, really, I'm up against people who, maybe I'm up against some really dope musicians. I won't even lie. It's a lot of dope cats out there who I'm really rocking with. But, and I'm not dissing them at all, but it's just a fact that, a lot of these cats who have not gone through those shifts, they only know how to do a few things, but it's not to say that they can't learn other things, but they've only had to go through a couple of things. Yeah. Me, I can, if you need this, I can give you that. If you need that, I can give you that. And I'm not vanilla. I'm always going to give you me, but I have so much range and so much experience because I waited so long, but I've been on the rise for so long that I've been able to just pull so many different colors and go through so much more living, so much more life. So yeah, I would go back and give this to myself earlier, but what does that mean for my longevity?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I start earlier, but do I finish earlier because I didn't go through as much? I didn't live as much life. So, if I could go back, I would just be like, look, this is what you want to do, but stay open-minded, keep absorbing things while you're working. I guess that's what I would say to myself.
Yeah, there's been the hashtag going around of share your rejections, and writers and actors and producers and directors talking about getting shot down on projects and stuff. But my favorite thing I've seen about it was somebody who said, I got to stop regretting bullets I dodged. I wouldn't be where I am right now in my life if I had gotten any single one of those projects that, so this person was looking back going, no, I like where I am right now. And if I had gotten that thing I thought I wanted so bad 5 years ago, wow, I'd be in a different place. And then I wouldn't have got the thing the next year. And, instead of regretting missed chances, like you said, that time that you can be out in the woodshed practicing, while your field's getting ready for you.
Absolutely. Then exactly. Then it's right. I'm gonna share this with you. I was on 106. You ever heard of 106 in Park Freestyle Friday? It's a countdown show on BET for anybody that doesn't know it. BET used to have this show called 106 in Park, and there were like videos, and there would be like a countdown. And every Friday they would have this Freestyle Friday MC battle. And I was actually on that. And back in like early 2000, I was battling on that show. And and whoever was the guest on that show would come in and vote who was the winner for that week. And then the champion would just every single week, somebody would come in from a different place from around the world and try to knock you out, essentially. And you could only go 7 weeks because obviously, nobody want to watch you battle. If you're undefeated, nobody wants to watch the same MC for like 7 years, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You can only go 7 weeks and then you get what's called retired. And so, yeah, I actually retired on that show. But, and my retirement week, my very last week, landed on Black Album Day with Jay-Z. So Jay-Z was there as the main guest. The whole show was centered around Black Album. I don't know if you remember when the first Black Album. I don't know if you remember when the first Black Album was coming out. People was like, man, Jay-Z's retiring. It was like, yo, Jay-Z's leaving the game. It was like, ho, right? And what happened was his album got leaked, and he was the Black Album celebration was scheduled for another day that wouldn't have overlapped with my Freestyle Friday battle. But it got leaked and they had to push it up, and boom, it just landed on the same exact day as my Freestyle Friday battle. And Jay, for me, is like I don't know any MC who hasn't been touched by what Jay's done. And he, for me, is a huge, huge influence. So I was like, oh, man, I want to be on Rockefeller so bad. I wanted that chain, you know what I'm saying? And here I am, on the 7th week, Jay-Z's right there. Diddy was there. Pharrell is there. They all celebrating Hov's last album and doing Change Clothes and like all the hits and 99 Pop, like everything. They're just killing it, right? And I'm like, all right, well, I hope what happens is I'm gonna kill this dude on my last day. I'm gonna get retired. The whole industry has been watching me for 7 weeks, because back then, if you wanted to look for talent, you wasn't really like people. You wasn't looking on YouTube. YouTube wasn't
that wasn't a thing.
Yet for music.
Yeah,
that wasn't a thing. So this was the Super Bowl of MCs. If you were an A&R trying to sign a rapper, this was the one place in the United States you can turn on the television and see who is getting shine as an MC around the entire United States of America. It's like right there. So, and I was it for 7 weeks. And so I was like, yo, I'm about to be signed by Rockefeller. I was like really feeling my thing. Cats was talking about me in barbershops all over the place. And so, we had a couple of talks with some cats, and it just kind of never materialized. And then eventually, unfortunately, Rockefeller kind of dissolved, and now it is what it is. And but yeah, I mean, even back then, if I would have signed back then off of that show, and that would have materialized, and I would have signed as an artist to a record label, man, I would just be in a different place. So, I've had those things happen to where it's been like, man, it felt like everything that I wanted in the moment, but then it passes, and it only gets better. If you know how to turn water into wine, it only gets better. It only gets better. So that's just to kind of expand off of what you're saying. And I wouldn't say I dodged the bullet, because it would have been a huge honor to be on Rockefeller, even if for a few months, yeah,
it would have been a great path. Just wouldn't have been this one.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. But musically, I just was not ready. And musically, me back then, no. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was dope enough to win Freestyle Friday, but that's, I'm judging myself on my own scale, and I don't feel like I was ready back then. I would have been fine, and yeah, I was writing, I think, at a high level, but looking at myself now and looking at who I was back then, I can do that, and I can also do this now, and it's just different. So, yeah, I'm happy where I'm at.
Well, man, I'm digging what I've heard of your stuff, and looking forward to where I get to hear it next.
Man, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you greatly. Have a great rest of the week.
You too. Thanks, man. Bye.
Ciao.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Electric Sweater Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/tvdudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter @TVDudes. All the music for our show is by our friend and original TV dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and electricsweater.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.